What's up, guys? Good old JM here, and this is your WWE Survivor Series 2017 review. The show just ended about a half an hour ago, and I gotta say, and I gotta be honest, it was one of the better shows of the year, and that goes a long way considering how the show was originally going to be booked, originally was going to be presented. As many of you know, it was changed in the past few weeks for the better, I believe, and I know I'm not the only one. And uh, I can throw in a lot of possibilities as to what led up to that, but as we all know, Vince McMahon is the final word or has the final say in everything, and I want to believe that there's a possibility that even Vince McMahon himself looked at the card as it was originally and said, uh, "Yeah, this show's gonna suck. We need to make some changes now, guys." And as we saw for the past 3 to 4 weeks on Raw and SmackDown, they did, with championships changing hands, with talent being exchanged against their wills, as I'll get into in a minute. But very entertaining, a very good show. Again, one of the best ones of the year, considering that both brands, both rosters were involved, and had a lot to live up for, and had a huge act to follow. Considering last night was NXT Takeover War Games, some people like to compare the two shows, which one was better, and I personally try not to do that because it's legit different brands to me anyway. And I know a lot of people don't look at it that way. Oh, it's WWE, it's all the same. No, one is still looked at as developmental talent. They won't call it like that officially anymore, but it's what it is. And on a weekly basis, they display their skills on the network. And every quarter of the year, NXT has their takeover shows. And unless you've been following them on a weekly basis, you won't know who you have talent wise. But War Games was excellent. The two ring cage match with those nine guys, Sanity, the Authors of Pain, Roderick Strong, and the Undisputed Era. All guys really busted their asses. There was a lot of bloodshed, a lot of high spots. We had two new champions crowned, and the NXT Women's Championship that was vacant because of Asuka's injury, and also her main event. Main roster call up, and Ember Moon walked away as the new Women's Champion. Surprisingly, Drew McIntyre dropped the NXT Championship to Andala Singh Almas, to many of our surprises, including myself. I really didn't think they were going to pull the trigger so soon on the Drew McIntyre title reign. But it's possible, and there were stories that he might have been called up sooner than expected, but word has it that at the very end of his match, he tore his bicep, and he might be out, depending what the MRI results were of today. I haven't seen anything as I was attending to a personal matter earlier in the day, and probably will not show up on Raw tomorrow night because that wouldn't make sense. Because if he is really hurt and may need surgery, there's no chance of him showing up tomorrow night. Survivor Series. This was the 31st edition of the Survivor Series. One of my favorite shows of the year, next to Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. They had a kickoff show because why not? Don't all great shows have kickoff shows for 2 hours with a lot of time to fill and literally throwing last minute matches on the dime? But at least one of them made sense, as it would have a great influence later on during the main card. Matt Hardy went one-on-one with the Drifter, Elias. Pretty good match. Matt Hardy's holding down his craft as Jeff Hardy's still out on injury. Unfortunately, he hurt his shoulder, for those who don't remember, over the summer, and was requiring surgery. So he'll be out at least for the rest of the year. No word if will be good to go by WrestleMania, but hopefully by Royal Rumble for sure. But hopefully they don't push him too hard. But Matt Hardy went down at the hands of Elias. Pretty good match here. The veteran Matt Hardy, of course, having Elias, keeping up with him, and Elias, the bigger, stronger of the two. Always has a great presentation. Always has a great presence and his drifter. They don't call him the drifter much anymore. I don't understand why. It really is his calling card in a way. But he has the talent to play a guitar. He has a pretty good singing voice, and he's always the always the a-hole, depending on what town he's in, and he just puts him down because he's such a great heel that you just have to cheer for him. And he starts off that way. He sings, and I'm just in this bum town, and it turns to half and half reaction because you still get the boos, but then you have the other ones that were cheering before. It's like, ha, he got us. you know, we were cheering him, but he turned on us anyway. Good one there, Elias. But Matt Hardy is defeated by Elias in the opening match during the kickoff. Next up, we had a Cruiserweight Championship match, a rematch of sorts between champion Enzo Amore and Kalisto, who celebrated his birthday this past week on Tuesday during 205 Live. I did not tune in because I was just I was just too tired. And for those who don't know, I've been recently going back to school, so a lot of my time and devotion has been dedicated to that, at least for the next few months. Um, Not bad of a match. It's what you expect of an Enzo Amore. Ever since he was thrown into the cruiserweight division, he's been in there with guys who can keep up with him speed wise and his level of wrestling. Because even though Enzo is not known as a high flyer as the majority of the cruiserweights are, but he still makes a great heel. And if not for nothing, any match you have against any cruiserweight will still make the other look good. However, Enzo Amore was still able to defeat Kalisto and retain his cruiserweight championship and move on. There are words, there are reports, there are rumors during the weekend that Neville has been back in talks with WWE. He was never officially released, just taking a hiatus. His contract is still active. So it's quite possible that we can see Neville back again in the WWE. I take these rumors, for those who don't know, I take these rumors with a grain of salt. I try to approach them as I believe it when I see it, but it doesn't mean it's not newsworthy to make mention here or anywhere else throughout social media. So if you want to keep it in mind and hope for the best and keep your hopes up of Neville returning, then no problem. I would love to see Neville back in the WWE. Just mix it up with other people other than the cruiserweights. Another story is also that Hideo Itami from NXT may have already gotten the call for the main roster, but specifically the cruiserweight division. In other words, 205 Live. So he may be able to shine his craft on Monday Night Raw. Again, I believe it when I see it. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm not saying I don't want it to happen. It's just like Neville returning, I would love to see Hideo Itami on the main roster. And if it happens to be only the cruiserweights, then I think creative really needs to take a step back and relook at that cruiserweight roster and how many of them have mixed it up with the heavyweights or any other kind of weight division throughout the years and still can have a pretty good, decent to an epic match with anyone else. Just saying. And the kickoff finally ended. It was 2 hours long, by the way, with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who were intentionally left off the pay-per-view because of an alleged conspiracy theory from Shane McMahon, and that Kevin and Sami haven't been really team players, and that's why they weren't able to join Team SmackDown tonight. But they took on Breezango, the team of Tyler Breeze and Fandango. It was a pretty basic match. It was mostly grounded. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn pulled off their signature maneuvers, and Breezango was just there keeping up with them. But it was very entertaining, of course. So there was a lot of heat on Owens and Zayn. As everyone knows, this past week on SmackDown, they bailed out on SmackDown Live's Survivor Series team and basically the entire roster when Raw came back to get their payback from about 3 weeks ago when SmackDown invaded or under siege Raw Live about a month ago when all this Survivor Series stuff was coming to play. But Owens, Sami, victorious over Breezango. And let's put it this way: this was not the last you will see of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And if you hear any noise in the background from my PC, I apologize. It's just a lot of messages and people reaching back to me as in relations to dealing with my personal event earlier today. But everything's fine. Just for those who are wondering, everything's fine. It's just it was a tough spot and a close call there. So Survivor Series, the main card opens up with a 3-on-3 tag team match. The New Day versus the Shield. All the matches, I believe, and yes, including the Miz and Baron Corbin match, it was going to be entertaining regardless. It was just a matter of, well, okay, well, who's going to go up? But then there was a pattern here after the second match, and I'll explain once I get there. But as far as the opening match with the 3-man tag, or the 6-man tag, I should say, the Shield against the New Day, it was great. It was really awesome. How it was like the Shield of old days when they were against the Wyatt family, when they were against Evolution. It's like they never missed a beat. The first time they got together after about 2 years, and of course, officially reuniting at the event that they debuted, Survivor Series. And of course, it was the big man against big man, that being Big E against Roman Reigns. The other 4 athletic team members, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins against Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. A lot of high-flying spots, including from Big E himself. Big E himself, he still does his suicide dive through the ropes and show the tackles his opponent. And a close call here. Either he was selling really good or he really landed on his shoulder awkwardly as he gave this cringe-worthy expression. But, he stood up and carried on with the match. And it ended up with the Shield just basically destroying the New Day and got the victory for Monday Night Raw and continue on, and also get the payback for the distraction on SmackDown a few weeks ago. No, I'm sorry, on Raw a few weeks ago when Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose lost their Raw Tag Team titles to The Bar, Sheamus, and Cesaro, because of the New Day's distraction. So payback, and you know what those are. Next up was Team Raw Women's 5-on-5 against Team SmackDown's women's team. I'm sure I botched that, but 5-on-5 all women's match, Raw versus SmackDown, and it was no surprising the end here. And a lot of people online earlier during their podcast had this very same prediction, and I even thought the same thing because it makes sense. But I knew a lot of these tag team matches, especially the two 5-on-5 elimination ones, would have a lot of interesting face-offs and a lot of potential matches that we've yet to see, at least in WWE. And one particular I was looking forward to in the women's tag match was Nia Jax facing off against Tamina. Now, Tamina was left off last year's Survivor Series due to her injury, and she was able to return here and reclaim that spot. Nia Jax steps in the ring, and it was just interesting. It was the Samoan family against the Fiji family from back in the day. The Islanders against the Head Shrinkers, or Haku and The Rock, or the Barbarian. Both sides have long lineage. I just bite my tongue saying that. They have history, and they've been in the business for a real long time. And it was almost nostalgic to see the current generation, and in this case, two daughters or granddaughters, depending on how you look at it, Tamina and Nia Jax. Yeah, it took me back to those days a little bit, back in the 80s and a little bit of the 90s. But anyway, bit of back and forth here, but eventually SmackDown would get control, eliminating most of the Raw women's team one by one. And then it just came down to Asuka going 2-on-1 with Natalya and Tamina on the other side. And it kicked in like, okay, we know where this is going and we know how this is going to end, but let's see how it happens. Let's see how they pull it off. And they got Tamina missing the Superfly splash off the top rope, Asuka will capitalize and eliminate her. Then came in Natalya, try to take advantage of Asuka's back turned and try to get a. She did get into the sharpshooter, and everybody was reminiscing about 1997 sharpshooter and the Montreal Screwjob. That didn't happen, and it should not have happened at all on the show. But knowing them, them being Vince, can't help themselves. But anyway, and Asuka would escape the sharpshooter and just unloaded with a barrage of kicks and elbows and forearms and chops and punches and at one point, well, at the end actually, Asuka got her and Natalya in a double underarm chicken wing, and I'm thinking, well, okay, so I guess this is one of her new submission moves, but no, she would almost like drop her like atomic drop wise to the ring apron. I'm sorry, to the ring mat, similar to the Bubba Bomb, except Natalya's caught in a double chicken wing. So Asuka drops her and immediately goes into an Asuka lock, which is her version of Bob Backlund's crossface chicken wing. And I think this was the first time in a long time. I can't remember when the last time it happened, but Natalya taps out, and Asuka is your sole survivor for Team Raw. Which again, a lot of fans and a lot of folks on the internet were predicting it had to be that way, because if you want to keep Asuka strong, if you want to keep that moniker of no one's ready for Asuka, she's unbeatable, she's undefeated, and to their credit, they've kept her that way. Even though she's been wrestling, for lack of a better term, on Raw jobbers with local talent, but just like Braun Strowman, that's how you got to keep it. Or in this case, Asuka, to keep her relevant, to keep her mysterious. What makes her unbeatable? I know Edge and Christian don't see it, but with time, it's a different audience from the NXT gathering, and the takeover audience is also different from the main roster audience. Even though a lot of people do know who she is and recognize her for her work, but it's a different platform. It really is, and a lot of people just seem to forget that or just ignore it altogether. But once again, Asuka, your sole survivor in the women's Raw vs. SmackDown match. Then we have what many people didn't think was going to be a good match, but it was okay. For me, it was all right. That being Intercontinental Champion The Miz versus United States Champion Baron Corbin. What kept this feud interesting, or at least this one match, because they may not wrestle this week again, but in the Champion versus Champion match, they had a lot of back and forth on Twitter with their verbal insults. Baron Corbin taking shots at Maurice, who was about 20 weeks pregnant, I believe, from what she shared on Instagram earlier this week. And The Miz retaliated with a Twitter message of his own and basically said he will break Baron Corbin's mouth and shove his teeth down his throat if he ever speaks about his wife again. Guys, I think most of us have been there, and you always feel that you need to defend the honor of your woman. So nothing wrong with that for The Miz, but this was a heel versus heel match. And considering all the changes that took place the past couple of weeks, a lot of us speculated that it would have been Sin Cara versus The Miz, champion versus champion, but I guess there was still some interest here because of the feud back and forth on social media. And surprise, surprise, Baron Corbin was victorious over The Miz, despite outside interference, despite distractions from the Miztourage of Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, who I still find hilarious in that neck brace. Keeping in the spirit of Raw vs. SmackDown, he had a bright red neck brace with a suit to match, standing out there. But it didn't stop him from performing some of his interference. But again, it was a good match. Good as meaning that it was better than expected. And it was Baron using his size and power advantage to The Miz's, well, I guess cunning. Miz can be athletic at times and have that agility, but to me, I don't know. It's like I feel like he holds back a lot of times. He'll be a great more or a better performer if he just let loose a little bit. I'm not saying he's a bad wrestler by any means. You know, he's a Intercontinental champion for a reason. I'm just saying personally, if he just instead of just stealing moves from other guys, just well, incorporate that and show off a little bit more athleticism. Maybe jump off the top and or a second rope a little more, or maybe do a few springboards. I mean, it doesn't hurt to add something else to your repertoire. But he's a heel. That's why he has his entourage. That's why he's still champion this long, because he finds ways to cheat. But can't blame him for that. But I don't think a babyface Miz will work anytime soon. And anyone who's thinking about it should put that off to the side for now. It's just not going to work, I believe. My opinion. Raw Tag Team Champions versus SmackDown Tag Team Champions. The Usos versus The Bar. This was originally going to be Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose against the Usos, but that all changed a couple of weeks ago thanks to the New Day's interference. But as much interest as the original match was going to be, this one just even, to me and a lot of other fans, spiked up the interest because we've seen in recent time how Sheamus and Cesaro can be as far as keeping up with the high flyers. They pull out a few high flying spots themselves from the top ropes, from springboards, from the apron, suicide dives through the ropes. So both of them may be big men, but they could fly. Maybe not like the Usos, but they could fly with the best of them. And this was basically a high flyer versus powerhouse match, and very entertaining. I would love to see these two teams go at it again. Maybe at a WrestleMania, or maybe if there's another superstar shakeup, or AKA the draft lottery or whatever they want to call it next time, and have both these teams on the same brand and have them go at it again to see who is the better team. And again, very entertaining. A lot of spots here that were cringeworthy. These two teams spend most of the time outside the ring, I believe, and Jimmy and Jay just oh man, they're getting better and better as week goes by, and it's a shame that not everybody's appreciating. I guess because they're heels. That's one reason that, or one way that they're not getting appreciated as much as they should. But I find them very entertaining. Jimmy and Jay Uso, especially as tag team champions, they can go a long way. They can go undefeated for the next 6 months before they can find someone that, or at least another team that's just as equally or just as dominant as they can be. But we'll see. We'll give it time. And speaking of which, Jimmy and Jay were victorious over the Raw Tag Team titles, proving that, at least from the creative point of view, that the Usos are the better team between the two. That's not putting down Sheamus and Cesaro. They dominated ever since they've been together, I believe, for almost a year now, if not more, after their infamous best out of 7 winner gets a championship title match. They never really did. They just put them together. Mick Foley did, and went after the tag team titles. And a year later, we're still with the Bar. But very good match. Hopefully, it doesn't go too unnoticed as we go into Night of Champions and then into the Royal Rumble. What is the tag team scene or the tag team division going to look like by the time the new year comes around? Women's champions, Raw. Let me try that again. Raw Women's Champion Alexa Bliss took on SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair, who recently won the title this past week from Natalya. So what they did there, they swapped Natalya with Charlotte on the Team SmackDown Women's 5-women team, and Charlotte will go on to face Alexa Bliss on a champion versus champion match. And it was a bit slow, I guess. I don't know. Going by the reaction of the audience, of the live audience, that is, there was a lot of dead air. Now I don't know. That might have been because they were coming down from the high of excitement and enthusiasm and adrenaline from the two previous matches. that they just had to catch their breaths, and it happens to be during this match. It was pretty solid match. Of course, Charlotte with the height advantage, but Alexa had a few tricks up her sleeve, and that's basically chopped down the tree, working on Charlotte's legs, and eventually the upper body and the shoulder, going for the disarmor. But I just heard too much dead air. It might have been from my streaming feed or what was going on, but there weren't too many reactions. There was a what they call a sunset flip power bomb that normally gets a huge reaction, but nothing when Charlotte delivered it. It was just like, okay, she went for a pinfall attempt, and crowd didn't respond. But yeah, at the end of the day, we saw Charlotte Flair slap on the figure eight leg lock on Alexa, and it looked like Alexa might have been reaching for the ropes, hanging in there for quite some time, but eventually taps out, and SmackDown Women's Champion defeats the Raw Women's Champion. And it was a right call because it originally would have been heel versus heel, champion versus champion match, and like the many changes that they made for the show for the better, this was one of them. Nothing against Natalya. She is a veteran. She's been there before, and she may get another opportunity later on before she hangs it up. I doubt it, but at least from that part of the family, for those who don't know, Tyson Kidd has been long retired due to that botched muscle buster from Samoa Joe. Not to place any blame, but it was a very severe neck injury, and it forced Tyson Kidd out of pro wrestling. So the family has to keep working. The family has to keep on moving. And then we get down to what Gorilla Monsoon used to say, the nitty gritty. It wasn't called that, but it might as well have been the double main event. First up, Universal Champion Brock Lesnar up against WWE Champion AJ Styles. Now, this is what started it all. That meaning Jinder Mahal, who was the champion at the time on SmackDown, would issue the challenge to Brock Lesnar. Come following, come to find out, the next following Monday Night Raw, we were supposed to get a reaction or a response from Brock Lesnar, except no, it's made official. Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar in the champion versus champion match at Survivor Series. And people just roll their eyes. People just like smacking themselves on the forehead, like, what are they thinking? So, not cooler heads, but I guess smarter heads prevailed. And I like to think a lot of the reaction on social media eventually got to Vince and said, yeah, this is not going to work. Nothing against Jinder Mahal, but he claimed after he lost the title to AJ that it wasn't an experiment. That he wasn't an experiment as champion, that he wasn't injured, and that it wasn't just a phase during his championship reign, and what reasons they were to drop the title to AJ. But we kind of knew better. It wasn't going to work out. It was not going to be entertaining at all. Jinder and Brock Lesnar. I'm not the only one, so don't come after me. But this match, another basic David versus Goliath when it comes to Brock Lesnar. We've seen this before with CM Punk. Very similar, only that this match didn't last as long. It was mostly Brock Lesnar, of course, with just tossing AJ around like a sack of potatoes. But once AJ got his offense in, he went for the legs, with those thigh kicks, those knee kicks, those low drop kicks, and quite a few phenomenal forearms to boot. And there was also a shot into the steel stairs on the outside. So it looked like AJ was about to capitalize. It looked like he was gonna take it home, as he was able to apply the calf crusher on Brock Lesnar. And at this point, his leg was already bummed out. He was limping. It was getting swollen. And one of the best counters to a calf crusher, where either you reach for the ropes, or either you find a way to roll out of it, opposite the pressure of where your leg is. But no, Lesnar just reached around and there's AJ Styles' head. So he just wraps his big arm around it and starts bouncing it off the ring mat as a basketball. He must have bounced it like 5 to 10 times, and it, he just looked like a rag doll. AJ did. Eventually releasing the hold. He would counter. AJ would get in one phenomenal forearm, one for the cover. It didn't work. So, all right, let's try this without the elbow pad and springboard off the top rope and hit him with another phenomenal forearm. Not quite. Brock Lesnar catches him across the shoulders, hits the F5, and gets the 1-2-3. So, Brock Lesnar over AJ Styles in the champion versus champion match. But very entertaining. It was cool as hell to see finally, even if it is a one-shot deal, similar to Samoa Joe versus Lesnar, or still awaiting the Finn Balor versus Lesnar match that we should get hopefully soon, hopefully before WrestleMania. This match was no exception, as AJ Styles finally got in the ring with Brock Lesnar at a Survivor Series and the champion versus championship match, no less. But the fun doesn't stop there, as the match started, or right before the match started, I should say. Jinder Mahal had a pre-recorded interview and mentioned that he's invoking his rematch clause for this Tuesday night on SmackDown Live against AJ Styles for the WWE Championship. So those who were worried about the rematch last week before Survivor Series did not take place breathed a sign of relief, but you knew this was going to happen. So it's going to be a week later, and that week later is going to be this Tuesday on SmackDown Live. I believe they still will be in Houston in the very same arena, and that's when and where we'll see the rematch. So if Jinder regains the title, if he regains the title, honestly, I would not be surprised. And two, I guess there are other plans, and he may not drop it back to AJ Styles. So there's probably someone else in mind on that SmackDown brand, but we'll give it time. Let's go one day at a time and see what happens this Tuesday. Main event time. This 5-on-5 elimination tag team match. Team Raw, Team SmackDown. You had Randy Orton, Bobby Roode, Shinsuke Nakamura, the returning free agent John Cena, and team captain Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Triple H, not Jason Jordan, and team captain Kurt Angle. Now, as exciting as it was to see all these names, and it really was star-studded and I guess, packed with superstars from past and present, but here's my little complaint about it, or my little nitpick. You had all this great talent. You had all these, well, I guess they're not young in age, but they're young in the company. And that being, guys like Bobby Roode and Shinsuke and Finn Balor, who've been in the business for a very long time and just joined the company. Some of them in their 30s or a little later, but it doesn't matter. They're in the company. They can still go. AJ Styles, who's already 40, he's still going, and he's the freaking champion. But my gripe is that it was filled with veterans. Of course, Triple H, Cena, Angle. I guess an argument can be made for Shane McMahon. And I say it only because he hasn't been in the ring as much as, compared to the other guys that he's in the same corner with. But here's a nitpick, and apologize for stalling. They went the route to eliminate all of the former NXT superstars first, and then start eliminating each other, the veterans that is, towards the end. I hated that. I'm like holding my forehead up. And again, what are they thinking? What are they doing? Why take that route? I'm not saying, at least I hope not, that they don't have any faith or confidence in the newer or younger talent, but it's one of the biggest stages of the year to be presented like that, and to spend all that time putting like the SmackDown team especially. I think that one had well, of course Randy Orton was another veteran, but the SmackDown team had a lot of had a lot of talent in Shinsuke Nakamura and Bobby Roode, two former NXT champions. They get called up, and they've been getting kind of, I'll say, they've been getting these shitty programmings, these shitty creative decisions, and it's not always, it hasn't always been good. But tomato, tomato. And I did. Thankfully, this did happen, and I knew it would because once the teams were finalized, and it was going to happen where it was going to be either a face to face or two guys would tag out in each other's corner. One side was going to tag in, well, the Raw team obviously would tag in Finn Balor, and then the SmackDown team would tag in Shinsuke Nakamura. So when they would go face to face, the crowd would just lose their mind, and they absolutely did. Everyone knows about the history in New Japan and in NXT. Kind of the match that we missed out on for the championship. I believe, if I remember right, if I remember right, they just missed each other. Finn Balor was drafted to Raw, and Shinsuke was just getting into NXT, and eventually feud with Kevin Owens, and later on with Samoa Joe. And yeah, it was a great moment. It was great to see again these guys, and then there was a couple other face-off between Triple H and Bobby Roode, and another face-off between Samoa Joe and Randy Orton. So maybe there might be some ideas there moving forward. Maybe at the Rumble, maybe at Mania, when they were mentioning it this whole month, like the one time a year where SmackDown takes on Monday Night Raw. Not quite. They do the same thing at Mania. They do the same at Royal Rumble. May not be one-on-one matches. They may not be advertised as interpromotional or whatever, but you guys do get together. Hell, even SummerSlam there are interpromotional matches. So Survivor Series is not the only time of year that they get together like that. Anyway, all these nitpicks I have. So after all the NXT guys were taken out, came down to Triple H, Braun Strowman, Kurt Angle, and Randy Orton, John Cena, and Shane McMahon. So eventually Orton would get eliminated. Cena would be eliminated by Kurt Angle with the Angle Slam after a failed attempt AA by Cena. And Braun Strowman was knocked off the apron, I believe, at this point by Shane as he realized he was in a 3-on-1 situation. So who is Shane going to face at the end here? Well, Shane. Shane will take on Kurt Angle, and just as Angle gets him into the ankle lock, Triple H steps into the ring. What's he doing? Why is he there? By the way, Triple H was sporting his new red T-shirt, so I guess he's kind of rogue. He wasn't really on Raw, just advertising his new or promoting his new T-shirt that happens to be red. Triple H steps in, and it's almost like if he was trying to tell something to Kurt Angle, and everybody was confused. The referee was like, "Get out!" Braun Strowman's like standing there like this giant oak tree. All of a sudden, you see Triple H kicking Kurt Angle and pedigrees him. What? He then drapes over Shane McMahon, and Kurt Angle's eliminated. What's going on? Why did this happen? Where is this coming from? Apparently seeds are being planted as of now, or maybe since last Monday night, for a possible match between Triple H and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania. But we've seen that before. It's nothing new. If it's one of those nostalgia type of matches, okay, fine. But honestly, one or the other guy can have a better match with a newer talent that they've never been in the ring with before. Again, my opinion, but I know I'm not the only one. So as mass confusion is continuing in the ring, Shane is getting up. He's looking at Triple H. What was that? What happened? Triple H is exchanging words with Shane. The referee's throwing his hands up. He don't know what's going on. So as it appeared that Triple H was going to side with Shane McMahon, because Triple H was backing up side by side with Shane, burning a hole through Braun Strowman, who was still standing on the apron. So everybody thought, like, wait, is Triple H siding with Shane and Triple H joining Team SmackDown and go 2-against-1 against Braun Strowman? Nah, Triple H with pedigree, Shane McMahon, and he would get the win over Team SmackDown. So your sole survivors are Triple H and Braun Strowman. So there've been double crosses, triple crosses, there across, here across, everywhere across, cross. No one knew what was going on, where this is leading up to. We've yet to see an encounter or a feud with Triple H and Shane McMahon because of the behind the scenes stuff, the behind the scenes, uh, I guess, position and power. Even though Shane McMahon officially does not have any authority, he's just an on-screen character. But Triple H is the COO. Stephanie McMahon, obviously the sister. She's still the executive. I'm sorry, the chief brand officer, something like that. Can't remember, but she's a high figure as well. That's my point. So is Triple H feuding with Angle? Is he feuding with Shane? What's going on? No one knows yet. We'll get there. Um, all I know is there'll be a lot of explaining to do tomorrow night on Raw, and of course a lot of bragging because finally, after a few years, Monday Night Raw finally gets to brag about Survivor Series because I believe it was maybe 3, 4 years in a row it was all SmackDown. Well, at least whenever the brand split was going on or the draft lottery was going on. But yeah, Raw finally got to win one, and we'll see how they explain this tomorrow night. And of course, the reaction and responses to everything else on SmackDown. So we'll see. Everybody tune in Monday Night Raw and Tuesday night on SmackDown. And again, I gotta stand by my original reaction to the show. Great, very entertaining, much better than expected. Excuse me, probably better than what originally was going to be the had the card not been changed. But definitely worked out for the better. And I'm now just realizing that I left out a piece of information there about the main event. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn did interfere. They were trying to eliminate Shane McMahon on the outside. Shane fought back, and I believe Cena was still active and still not eliminated, and he assisted Shane McMahon with that. But they tried, so that's something else that's also going to be explained. Something else that's also going to be continuing with this conspiracy theory against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and why they were kept off the Team SmackDown team, and just saying all this alone in the past 45 minutes or so. Yeah, it's a lot to say. It definitely took my breath away, and I mean that in a good way because it was a great show. If I was to give it a score, I'd say an 8 out of 10. Not perfect, but it was again much better than expected, and thankfully the necessary changes were made for the better, and we got what we did. So thank you, Vince McMahon, and thank you, creative, or whoever else was responsible for that, and we ended up getting what we did. So that is your WWE Survivor Series 2017 review. I hope you enjoyed my little review here, sharing for the past few minutes or so. If you listen to this point, thank you very much. Also want to take a minute to thank everyone for their support. For those who don't know, you can follow me across social media. I go to JM at Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. I'm hoping to get a few more movie reviews out here. I had a couple of different city trips, vacation earlier this month and last month as well. So I've been really busy traveling, been really busy going back to school. So it's a lot going on right now, and I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying to put out much content as I can with the next coming weeks, especially with the holidays coming up. And speaking of which, the next time I will put up a review will be for the Night of Champions as far as WWE is concerned. But in case I don't hear from anyone or not able to reach out, everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy and be thankful and blessed for who and what you have in your life today, friends and family. And of course, happy holidays in December. everyone across the world. It's been a real crazy year, just going on what you see on the news, but it is what it is, and I say that because it's the world we live in, and change hopefully will come sooner than later, and we can all be living in a better and happy place. But before I get a little bit more mushy, this is good old JM. Thank you for joining me, and if you like what you hear, click that like button and subscribe. And I'll be here next time with another review, whether it's WWE or another movie review. And thank you. Take care. God bless. Stay safe and be good.